Alright, party people. Alright, homies. Welcome back to the podcast, back to Tomboy Official. I've got this article, or series of articles that I'd like to talk about, or I don't know. So, Mac and Jimmy posted Friday, I believe it was, or maybe it was a different day. I screenshotted that Instagram post where she had posted about the drag show ordinances in places in Missouri in the Midwest of the U.S. I've got a lot of family in Missouri, but I don't live there currently. I've lived there before. But yeah, Missouri has pockets of diverse areas just like anywhere else, just like California. Like Northern California is not the same thing as Southern California. It feels almost like a different state. The climate's different. The vibe is different. Culturally, it's just different. And yeah, beach cities don't have the same, vibe as like inner cities do, and downtown areas don't have the same vibe as like the more extreme inland areas do, like the more rural kind of suburbs and like all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's not uncommon to have states that have different cities and different areas. So the places that I'm used to in Missouri, I visit there when I go there, and I was raised there until I was like 5 or so, but I've never really had to deal too much firsthand other than with, the church going family. I kind of like overhear their ideas about things and about people's differences, but I wouldn't say that I really know for sure. Like, I don't know. My family's, I think the older generation, they're kind of just trying to figure out, how to deal with all the things that kind of challenge their religion. I think they're barely starting to have a mindset about learning or thinking about learning about how their religion, how they can like challenge their beliefs and stuff. And yeah, because otherwise it was mostly just people sticking to what the religion would teach and not really having any other story to go with. But yeah, so with Mac and Jimmy, I had screenshotted what she posted on Friday when I saw it, and then I was like, I'm gonna go back in and try to find the actual article that she was basically reposting from. And so I found it, and I haven't really fully read everything. I just skimmed to make sure it was the right thing. And so basically it talks about ordinances surrounding drag shows, drag events. Now, these, laws are pretty prejudiced. I mean, if you switch the words like drag and put any other minority relevant type of topic there, you would probably notice very clearly and be like, whoa, like if they were saying like no black people can be near, like within however many feet of like a park or something like that, like it would be kind of like, whoa, like what are we doing? But because it's like something else, I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking that. Yeah, it's kind of prejudice. So let's look at it. It says a new Branson. So Branson is a place in Missouri. A new Branson ordinance restricts where drag shows can be held in the city and who can attend them. So I feel like this conversation's been going on for like a year now. Like it feels really long. Like maybe it was just before this summer, but to me it's starting to feel like long, and I'm like, are they still going on about this stupid stuff? Like I don't understand why they're so concerned about drag shows. Like I feel like that's one thing that they can try to control that's LGBT relevant without them saying we don't want LGBT people here or any part of the culture of LGBT life that's kind of like attracting the general public to kind of think outside of the box. That's what I hear when I hear people like attacking drag shows, because not everybody's gonna go to a gay bar. Like straight people, I get it. Like they're not just gonna be like, oh, let me like check out a gay bar as like a cultural experience or whatever. Like a lot of straight people, unless you have gay friends, you're probably not gonna frequently be hanging out in gay bars or gay clubs or going to pride events. But drag shows are kind of one of those things that kind of draws people into the culture. Kind of like, I would say, for example, like with black culture. Like a lot of people might not go to a black church or a black like an event where it's like a Juneteenth event where there's black people there, and some stuff where they're like, if you're a white person, you might not be comfortable going to those kind of places. But if there's like a community, it seems more like a community event or like location, like a soul food restaurant or like a, I don't know, like a like a cookout or something where it's like for the community, like a block party cookout kind of situation, or something at the park that's like that. You'd probably see a lot more white people in those spaces because it's like community centered. And I kind of feel like that's how it is with drag shows. Like it doesn't matter what establishment a place is, a drag show can be hosted there. And I think that makes it so the general public is like, oh, there's going to be a drag show. Like, why don't we go check it out? Because it's not necessarily, even if it is at like a gay bar or whatever, but it's not like there's gay bars everywhere. They're usually very few and far between. I mean, I live in LA, and LA doesn't even have that many gay bars. In all honesty, when you think of it, there aren't that many. I mean, where I live, there's one within like a 10 to 20 mile radius, 10 to 20 mile, 10 to 20 minute driving distance. And then in Long Beach, that's almost 30 minutes away, a little less than 30, but let's call it 30 minutes away. And then Hollywood, that's about an hour away. So it's about, you know, Hollywood has a lot. I'm pretty sure there's some downtown as well, but that's almost an hour distance. So even in a city like LA, there's not that many gay bars. Like they usually put them in certain areas, and then there's like quite a few in certain areas. Like WeHo has a lot, um, but it's not like that. Like not every single city in LA has a lot of gay bars, like at all. Like outside of WeHo, Long Beach has quite a few, and then the distance between Long Beach and WeHo is probably about an hour if you're not sitting in a lot of traffic. So that's about an hour distance where there's only one other gay bar between Long Beach and WeHo. Well, I mean, if you count like downtown, there might be some other ones like Santa Monica. I don't really know for sure. I'm guessing. I'm just taking wild guesses that like Santa Monica and Venice probably have maybe one or so, but they might not. And Orange County only had that one, and I don't think it's even open anymore. So they don't have like any that I know of. And this is out on the West Coast where it's very open minded. So I would assume that most other states in middle America don't have so many. I've heard that Texas has a lot, a large gay community that I've heard good things about. Vegas as well, or just Nevada in general. I don't know exactly where the borders of Las Vegas actually are, but there's another city that's not Vegas that's like near it. And then, yeah, the West Coast. I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, I've looked up places, and so I know a lot of states, probably have like a couple at least. And then I feel like New York has a few, quite a few. Um, but yeah, you would think like LA would have more. LA doesn't really have that many, but there are pockets. I'd say Long Beach and WeHo, and maybe a little bit of the some places probably off the 10, which I can't confirm, but because the 10, if you think about it, it goes pretty much. I would say it goes through downtown. It goes through and it goes all the way to like West LA. So I would probably say there's something downtown and something in West LA. Just because those are like hubs where there's like stuff like near LAX airport, and then like Santa Monica, Venice, those beach cities. There's got to be something. I just don't know. But yeah, there really aren't that many, and so I do feel like people kind of gravitate towards drag shows, and I think it's scaring. The conservative religious folk and the prejudiced people who are either religious or non-religious. The people who, like it would be like, say if for example, there were some Mexican groups that decided, hey, we're randomly gonna start playing mariachi music live in parks on the weekends. We're just gonna do that. Like, say that became like a trend. Um, I don't think people would protest something like that heavily. You know what I mean? So it's like when you think about it, it's like, why can't some cultural groups host their own, entertainment? Um, so let's look at it before I keep going on and on and on. So the second page in, it says the Branson Board of Aldermen voted in favor of the Ordinance 4-2. The ordinance restricts drag shows to Branson's downtown district and prohibits minors from attending performances. So, okay. That means that if it's not downtown, it can't be hosted. And if someone is a minor, they're not allowed to attend. So, minor, in my understanding, is if you're under 18 years old. And I can kind of maybe understand the age limit. That's something I think I can kind of understand. Especially because, I wouldn't say that drag shows are always like child friendly. Like, there is some dancing that can be, more on the provocative end. There's kind of this almost like stripping sometimes, or almost a lot of times, people kind of take off their clothes and stuff. Maybe not fully, but I mean, I've seen plenty of butt cheeks and plenty of mesh tops, or bottom outfits, not top and bottom like sexually, but top and bottom like a top, or like a shirt, or like some kind of thing that's a garment of some kind, usually like some kind of Speedo style, underwear of some sort, that's kind of see-through, either an upper body see-through garment or a lower body see-through garment, or people having like uh, tape over their chests and things like that. Um, so yeah, if people have like tape, um, then like that's one thing that I've seen. I've seen a lot of that, and like yeah, like people with like chaps with like the assless chaps and that kind of thing. Like there's all kinds of outfits, so I could kind of understand the age range, like because I don't know, like I think about if I had kids, I don't know if I'd want them under 18 going to events like that. Like I wouldn't mind them going if I were there with them, but I don't know how I would feel if I was like, oh, like they went to a friend's overnight birthday party and part of the birthday was that their friend's parents took them to like a drag show or something. Like I don't know if I would really mind. I really don't. I mean, I know it's not based on my opinion, and I don't have kids, so it's kind of hard to really say. But yeah, like I can kind of get that. So there's this quote by Chuck Rodriguez, the Branson alderman. And so it says drag shows have been going on forever, and the 15 to 20 to 30 people who attend them once or twice a year, they're not hurting anybody. I just can't believe we're doing this. So he seems to be a little concerned. These cowboy hats, guys. Missouri, what's up? So in that picture, he's wearing like this long, it looks like a long sleeve button down that says Embers. I think it says Embers Only Cigar Club. And that's the shirt he's wearing. He's got a cowboy hat on. The next slide says similar bills and ordinance have popped up across the country, most notably a Tennessee bill that prohibited male and female impersonators from performing in public was deemed, in quotes, unconstitutional by a federal judge in June. Oh, how the heck that's unconstitutional for female or male impersonators. Oh, I see. The bill itself was deemed unconstitutional by a federal judge in June. So that does make more sense that the bill itself is unconstitutional. And the picture on this slide shows again outdoors. Like I don't know, it seems like they're hosting these outdoors. I can't tell exactly what's going on, but it looks like outdoors. There seem to be some people with some face paint on. So and yeah, there's some kids around. I see some kids in the background. It looks like it's maybe at a park or some kind of fair. There's like some tents in the background. Maybe those are booths, or maybe they're something else. I don't really know, but it looks like it's some kind of outdoor event. And there's a drag queen who's kind of like with the wig and the makeup and the dress, holding a paper and like speaking. There's this other Branson alderman named Clay Cooper, another dude with a cowboy hat on. He's got a suit and tie, and he says, this is his quote, "I'd be afraid that if one, in parentheses, drag show establishment popped up, then all of a sudden we have Presley's, Drag Show, Grand Jubilee, Drag Show, Clay Cooper Theater, Drag Show. That's probably far-fetched, but you never know. So why would somebody be afraid? I mean, it's kind of interesting the language that's used. So they seem kind of split. This other alderman seems like he's not concerned because he's like, it's not like there's that many people who are going, and people just go a few times a year when they do go, which I would say is kind of true. Like, I don't know anyone who goes to drag shows like every single weekend, and I go to quite a few, but I don't think I even go to like one a month. And I feel like I go to more than most people that I know. But they're just kind of pricey because, you're tipping the queens and if you pay a cover. So say if there's like 8 performers or 10 performers and you give them each $1, that's already $8 to $10 you're already spending. And then if the door is $10 to get in, and then when you're there, if you're going to buy a $20 burger combo and then order like a drink that's going to be like 12 or 13 bucks with tax and tip, you're spending like 40-50 bucks just to go to like a 2-hour show. And so it's a little bit intense, but as far as on the wallet, but I don't know why this guy would be afraid that if one pops up, then there's gonna be like drag shows in between every single establishment, and that's not really how it works. Like, shows are usually, most of the time, I would say most shows are usually going to be at like something that's more of a safer space, because if the general population walks in and there's a queer population that's kind of like suddenly in like a bar or club space where there's not usually a lot of queer people, I mean, that's already opening the door for some kind of chaos to happen, unfortunately. I feel like the only time I've really experienced queer establishments not having the only time I've ever experienced queer establishments not having somebody in, like, how do I say this? Queer establishments not having somebody kind of like in not like queer events not being hosted in a queer establishment, was during the Rona. There was this one, I know that they had those rules where you could only do like outdoor events, and so for Pride there was a big march. There was no actual festival that year. There was a big march, and then all the events there were a lot of like rooftop events, and this was in San Diego, so a lot of the events had to be at hotels where they had pools outdoors, or on rooftops where they had pools and outdoor spaces where you could kind of host like a club kind of event. So they did this around like Gaslamp and downtown and like Hazard Center area, and that's a terrible name, but that's what it's called. And these were like Hiltons, Marriott's, like whatever kind of spaces that weren't gay bars. These were hotels. These were your classic straight people hotels. And it was weird to have like gay events in a place where you're like, oh, the bartenders seem a little straight-laced, and there's staff walking around that's like, the cleaning staff, which is fine. Like, I'm not like against them or anything. Like, I experienced zero disrespect from any of the staff or any of the servers, but it wasn't like gay culture looking servers or staff. Like, usually you have staff, the go-go's are usually like with the with the vodka shots, or like, they're usually topless or with their Speedos and, or in their bikinis or whatever they're wearing. That's more normal, for me. Like, usually when I see bartenders, I'm like, you know, there's something representative that you're like, I see you. You're like, you're one of us. Like, that's the only event that I can ever remember going to where I was like, these people have uniforms and they look like they're straight people. Like, there was nothing about them. They didn't have like rainbows on or anything. They were just wearing like gray polo shorts and like slacks or something like that. And then you had the cleaning staff. They were kind of like there as like people to like help you get directions. Hey, where do I go? How do I find this kind of thing? But again, they had uniforms on too, so it was kind of like really weird to be like in a place where it's like, oh, these aren't like gay establishments. Like, the staff, like all the staff running the places were not openly queer represented, like as in the way they looked. They might have all been queer, but I doubt it. Like, it didn't seem like it. But I mean, you can't tell just because of the way that someone's dressed, and nobody seemed uncomfortable or like unfamiliar. They weren't like shocked. But I did see some of the cleaning staff kind of like snickering and pointing and like a little bit of like laughing, but I can't tell if they were laughing at people, and like they were probably enjoying people watching. It would have been a good people watching event, honestly, because watching sassy drunk gays in their element is, I would say that is some fun people watching. And so this last slide says the ordinance also dictates that drag show establishments cannot be within 600 feet of a religious institution, school, public park, or residential property. Drag show establishments will also be limited to one wall-mounted sign with no flashing, blinking, or moving features. So they're trying to crack down on the marketing, and they're trying to crack down on where they can be built. Now, okay, let's be real. There aren't that many drag establishments, people. There aren't that many. Like, even in LA, there's Hamburger Mary's. That's kind of like a chain of places where you can find drag events. There aren't that many places where you can just only go to see drag shows. Usually what happens is the drag shows are at certain times of the week or month or whatever, and they schedule them and then they promote them. I don't know, other than Hamburger Mary's, I don't really know of any other popular places where it's like, this is a drag spot. Usually there's like bars and clubs that, maybe first Wednesday night of the month or first Sunday of the month or every other Friday night they'll have a drag event, or like for Halloween they'll have like, oh, goth drag or something like that. Like, but it's not drag all the time. Like, usually you don't find drag establishments. Like, that's not usually how it goes. I feel like most gay spaces would rather have a gay space with other, opportunities for people to do other things and not just watch only drag. That's not something that I would say is like normal, that there's usually only drag. Like, even Hamburger Mary's, their drag shows are like maybe 2 hours long. Sometimes they start on time, sometimes they don't. And then sometimes they end on time, sometimes they end late. And then the dance floor opens. They just clear off the tables from the dance floor, and then it becomes a dance floor, and it's a club at night after that drag show. And so I don't really know, guys. Like, I don't really know. I mean, I'm an LGBT person, and I don't really know of that many drag establishments. So I think this is going to crack down on the amount of places that host drag shows, because a lot of them are just sprinkled throughout the city. So 600 feet, that's about, like I know when I'm driving and they say in 1,000 feet, that's about a block or so. And so I would say 600 feet is about, um, half of that or so. So that means you basically can't be on the same street or across the street from any of these places. So that is a religious institution. So church, synagogue, temples, school, uh, public park, or residential property. So that's weird. I think that they're saying with the schools or the public parks, maybe because of the children that could be there, but also it's like, okay, you basically can't be that close to a school, public park, or residential property. A residential property, like a house. So if there are like those establishments where they have like apartments up on the top, they wouldn't be able to have like a drag establishment on that lower street level. Or if there's like a residential, if it's like a main street and then like across the street or like around the corner there's like the housing, like apartments or a house like right on the residential street. Like say there's like a main street and then like across street, like Main Street and 5th Street or something like that, and then there's houses on 5th Street. So that would mean that you couldn't really be like around the corner from houses. And this is kind of stupid. The drag show establishments will be limited to one wall-mounted sign with no flashing, blinking, or moving features. I mean, when I see stuff like this, I can't compare to like Nazi Germany. I'm not in any way trying to say, oh, this is like Nazi Germany or this is like Jim Crow or like that kind of thing. Like it's not the same thing, but to some extent the ideas behind it are the same thing. It's like there are these minority groups trying to do these things, and then there's this majority group that's like, okay, let me limit them in all these like arbitrary ways just to make it less convenient and to try to scare and ruin the businesses of establishments that are already there, or from establishments popping up, or limiting things. I could say, okay, if you want to make rules for religious institutions, they can kind of make rules about that. But to have a city making a rule that a certain type of establishment can't be within 600 feet from a religious institution. Like if you think of it, you can have a bar next to a religious institution. You can have a bar next to a school, a bar next to a public park, or next to a residential property. Like, right? Like you can have bars, just like a classic bar. I'm not even talking gay bars. Like you can have a bar. You can have a liquor store. You can have a smoke shop, right? Next to all those places. And so they're actually singling out, establishments, drag show establishments. They're singling out, you can't make a drag show at any place that's near any of these spots. And maybe because they had that other one that was being hosted at a public park, they don't want people hosting them at public parks. So it can't be near a public park either. And I don't know, I guess they're saying residential property because people would probably be like, well, then I'll just host them at my house. But now they can't host them at their house if they're not supposed to be within 600 feet of a residential property. So, and I don't know if this means I can't rent, drag performers to come to like a birthday or whatever at my own house. Is that illegal? Because I feel like this is just taking it too far, guys. Like, I feel like if Missouri's allowed to do something like this and take it this far, I mean, this is too far. I can understand, not having drag in schools. I can understand, like, as far as like the performances. I'm not talking about people dressing and impersonating a different gender, because to me those are two different things. The way I feel like I want to dress is different from, an actual drag performance, right? So yeah, just trying to like understand where they're trying to go with some of this stuff is just a little bit annoying and stupid. And then yeah, with the one wall mounted sign with no flashing, blinking, or moving features. So you can't really capture the attention psychologically or perceptually from people passing by. I mean, how is this legal? How is it legal to pass a law like this? How can someone pass a law that limits your marketing and limits where you're allowed to do things? Like, even if it says residential property, how am I not allowed to have drag performances at my own house? You know what I mean? Like, I don't live in Branson, Missouri, but I'm just saying, if I did live there, how are they going to regulate what I do in my own house? You know what I mean? If that's a residential property, how are they going to regulate that? How are they going to say you can't do this in your own property? Because they say you can't have a drag show establishment within 600 feet of a residential property, meaning you can't have it within less than 600 feet, meaning you can't have it in your residential property. Like, how is that legal? Like, I can kind of understand the religious institutions because they do whatever kind of crazy things they want to do to not have something in there, but it's like, how can the state require that a public establishment can't be within a certain distance of a church? Like, how is that legal? Like, within the distance is what I'm saying. Like, I can understand a certain religion being like, we don't allow people in drag to come here. Like, religions do weird shit, and so, if they want to ban anybody, they can ban anyone they want to ban. That's how it works. It's a religion. They ban whatever they want to ban, but that's within their own walls and what comes through their own door. Like, how does a religious establishment have control over what happens, like what's placed next to them in the city? And 600 feet, is a close enough distance, but it's like, it's a few buildings away. So, or like across the street. So there's like a radius where you can't really be either maybe on the street behind, across the street, or within a few buildings away. And so the reason why I find this problematic is if there are drag establishments or places like gay bars that want to host drag shows. If the city wants to crack down on limiting drag shows, all they have to do is build a house or build a church or build a school or a park within 600 feet, and now that other place is no longer allowed to host drag performances. And I mean, once they ban one thing, once they ban drag performances or find like some weird way to ban them, once they start banning more and more stuff, I mean, they're gonna keep taking it, to different levels. It's gonna be, because I feel like the banning of drag is actually an attack on trans culture. I know that it's not the same thing, but just the wording of things like the Tennessee one where they were talking about impersonating another gender, it's like that basically means like if you're non-conforming with gender or non-binary or androgynous, or if you're trans and you're dressed in clothing different from your assigned gender, that's technically still considered impersonating, depending who you're talking to. And to be legally reprimanded just for the way you dress, I feel like that is also another thing taking it too far. So I know that a lot of people might not care. It's like to some extent it's like, okay, drag shows, like it doesn't seem like a huge deal because they're not saying like, okay, you can't have gay people here or whatever. But it's like, okay, if you ban things that happen in gay establishments, like how are you going to dictate what's happening in those establishments or where people host their events? Like if I wanted to have a rave, I could do that. If I wanted to have some kind of pride event during Pride Month, I could do that. But I can't have I'd possibly get in trouble if I had some kind of drag show situation that I decided that I wanted to do to entertain my own friends or whatever, which is, I don't think that's the place of these people who are making these rules to say stuff like that. It says a new Branson ordinance restricts drag shows to the city's downtown district and prohibits minors from attending the performances. The Branson Board of Aldermen voted in favor of the ordinance 4-2 on Tuesday, so that was last week, with votes in opposition from Alderman Cody Fenton and Chuck Rodriguez. And it says, click the link in our bio to learn more about the ordinance. So let's see. Just some of the comments. Dumbest law ever. Talk about unconstitutional. This is fucking America, land of the free. Free to be whoever the hell you want to be. Period. Huge disappointment. How embarrassing for Branson, just confirming that they are small-minded and backwards in their thinking as a community. Branson theaters rely on LGBTQ employees and talent. Good job, Branson City Council, on reminding them that they really aren't welcome in your community. Unreal. Freedom. Freedom for you. Oppression for anyone who has different opinions than you. Anyway, tax the church. Smiley face. Right. I know, right? When his aging audience finally dies off and the Clay Cooper Theater is foreclosed, I hope to see a drag show get a deal on the building and use their savings to buy the biggest, brightest sign in Branson. Credit to Chuck Rodriguez and the other council member who stood up for freedom and opposed this freedom stomping law. You want to protect children, keep them out of churches where they are constantly being molested. Well, yeah. There's a lot of other ones. The drug problem should get this much attention. This is why Southwest Missouri is impoverished and minimum 10 years behind on everything. All Missouri does is waste money on useless legislation. Like, let's worry about something that matters, like the homelessness and housing crisis. I can't tell if the Clay Cooper quote is a joke or not. Jesus was the first drag queen, and she was black. Oh my gosh. Okay, so, so yeah, it's definitely an interesting take on things. I don't know what to say. This is just craziness. But I'll put the link. And I think that's about all I've really got to say about this. So yeah, with that, thanks for listening.